Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to one of the real highlights of our meetings. This tradition was started now many years ago by Renato Scotto, and we have been blessed with a long list of fabulous masterclass experiences, and we are about to have another. Many of us in the audience are not performers and have not studied singing, and have not experienced exactly what happens when teaching happens, let alone when polishing happens. And the purpose of the master class is to remind us why so many of us got involved with and passionate about our research in the first place, and to help also train our ears a little bit more. You are about to hear a few singers who will probably sound pretty good, and then our master class teacher will start doing things, and they will sound a whole lot better. The singers and singing teachers in the audience are familiar with and will enjoy the process. For the rest of us, hopefully it will be enlightening and ear-opening. Our masterclass teacher this evening is Susanne Mentzer. She is a name and a voice known and loved by all of us in the opera and oratorio world. She has been on stages all over the world for the last 3 decades, having started when she was only 2. Yeah. She's been singing with the Met since 1989, has recorded 25 CDs and DVDs, and we will have lots more to say about her during the gala tomorrow evening. She is also an experienced private and academic teacher and a dedicated mentor to young artists. We are very fortunate to have her with us this evening, Susanne Mentzer.
Projecting well. I've never been to one of these symposiums before, and I have to say that my brain was hurting after the last 2 days. And I took so many notes I can't read my notes. But I wanted to preface this class a little bit. First of all, I injured my leg walking my dog, so if you see me limping, that's what that is. I think that master classes are an odd situation because I only have a limited time with each person. I've never seen these people before. I know nothing about their background. Normally I would like to ask them a lot about their vocal history, what kind of things they've been working on, because usually you're a work in progress. And so the students who are singing, are they in the room? Over there. Hi. Hi. If there's something that I ask you to do and that rings a bell, or it's, say I tell you that I think your tongue needs to come further forward, and you need to tell me, oh, well, when I first started with my teacher, it was that, you know, like I need to know where you've been. So I don't want to hurt anybody or go against what somebody's teacher's trying to tell them. So I'm here to help, in other words. And if I don't make sense, you just tell me. Because I think working with singers is so much semantic based. And it was interesting yesterday talking about the lingo of teaching, because I found that, for instance, I have a dyslexic student, and she has to hear everything, and she hears everything in a different way. She doesn't hear everything in just a line. She'll hear where it fits in. And then there are others who have to hear the line and know the intervals. And that's just on the musical side. So everybody learns differently. And it's my job as a teacher, or any of the teachers out there, to find the right semantics to meet them on their level. Because there is no one way of saying just about anything. So, that said, communication, right? Who's going to be the first victim? Okay.
I'll
You want to
introduce
say,
her.
yeah, sure.
We'll let people know. And before we introduce our first victim, let us introduce our wonderful accompanist, Richard. Where are you? That's Richard Raub, who's certainly one of the finest pianists around and has been with us almost forever. Ashley Alden has a bachelor's and master's in vocal performance from Catholic University. She has performed Susanna, Musetta, Queen of the Night, and Loretta, among other roles. She sang the soprano solos in Schubert's Mass in G with Mendelssohn Club of Philadelphia. That was the first piece of music that I sang professionally.
Oh.
We had a trio that did the Benedictus, and we went from church to church and sang the only song we knew. And she is about to join the Apprentice Artist program at Chautauqua.
Oh, great.
Ashley Alden.
I have to say that I was born in Philadelphia, and my mother sang with the Mendelssohn Society class. I have two 78s of them singing, so kind of cool. All right, Ashley.
Hi, tonight I will be singing for you Quando and vuol from the opera La Vowel.
probably going to talk a lot, and I don't want to take away from your time. Okay, a few things. Can everybody hear me over here when I turn? There are a few things I want to address. It's beautiful, and you emote wonderfully. I want to know what your favorite vowel is, meaning the easiest vowel you sing. E or A? Yeah, E?
Mhm.
Okay, so E. And I could tell that because on E, do, que, sa, you keep it right in that E place, right? Now, what are you doing when you breathe?
Thinking about expanding
Right.
throughout the whole part of my body and keeping my rib cage open, not letting it collapse.
Anything else?
Breathing.
Okay, that's good.
I just blow air.
Okay, I'm going to talk a lot about breathing, I think, because it's kind of one of my things that I didn't have a technician until I got out of Juilliard, believe it or not, and was out on my own and realized that everything I was doing was kind of backwards. And I got with my teacher, who was Norma Newton, who's since passed away, but she totally rebuilt me. And one of the things that we worked on was breathing. And for instance, we joke around, we say she put her claws right here to keep this open, because I used to push out here, which is a real common problem. If you do crunchies, if you do sit-ups, it's going to go like that. You gotta have to live with fat there, okay? So you don't want this to ever be rigid right in there. So ribs out is great, but there's one other component I'm going to add here. I want you to think, any singers here, I want you to think that there's a line here, and that everything below it is doing the work, and everything above it is just open, waiting for the sound to roll out. It sounds so simple, but it's like the path of least resistance from here to there.
Okay.
And I've quoted, I've written about the idea of a baseball pitcher. You know, it's about the wind-up and the release. It's not about force. Like if I were to throw a ball towards home plate, it would just go like that, right? But they have this incredible, when you slow it down, it's like a spaghetti arm, and it just goes shoot, and there it goes. And the point is to get the spin, after it leaves your mouth, the spin has to get over home plate where it needs to be, right? I love that metaphor, because also pitchers don't pitch 2 games in a row and they rest their arm a lot. So that's just like singers, professional singers. Okay, so how do you do that? Wherever, especially for women, wherever you feel like you're fat and you hold it in, this is always going to move. It takes a while to coordinate. It's a bit like this, but it's like, that's an exaggeration because I just pulled in all the way. When you're learning your music, you add in this, how am I going to support? So you're breathing, but this is your support. This is your bow on a stringed instrument. This is your gas pedal. This is what's going to even change your pitches. What I loved yesterday was hearing about the neurological pathways, because I've often said, think the pitch. It's going to be there. By the time your brain is telling your chords what the pitch is, you can't go finding it. It's too late, right? So a lot of people are like taught to find the pitches. And no, let your brain do that work. Once you know the pitches, it's there. Not that you have that problem. Okay, so like a wind-up twin, I have so much to say. So first of all, I want you to just take your E vowel, and I want you to start at the beginning of the aria, and I want you to feel like this is going to actually pull in. Can I touch you?
Please.
Okay. All right. You're just going to aim this for your lower back the whole time. And it can't ever stop. So in a long note value, you don't want, we're all very conscious of longer note values. Oh wait, I have to count at so many beats. I have a high note coming. This always has to move a little bit, because this is going to get the air flowing from here to here before you have to sing. So I always feel like I open, support, and then sing. Because the support always has to come a little bit before phoneme. Right. Now I want you to really once pull back as far as you can. You're going to feel like excellent. Now the other component is cut off from here as well. Once it gets strong enough, it'll be a little more tapered, but if you release from here, you're ready to go again. And actually, this whole vacuum idea, in simplistic terms, you have a lot more air in there than you think you do. So sometimes you don't even need to breathe, you just need to release.
Yes.
So, for instance, sing that eval. And I want you to keep going as long as you can on it.
Okay.
And then I want you to think that you're going to stop the pitch from here.
Okay.
Excellent. So, once this pops back out, it's just like doing this. when this muscle pops back out, it's ready to go again. So. That's it. That's it. She got it already. Some people, it's like doing this. Okay. Now, I want you to think that adding that into the phrases, that's going to help your legato. That's going to, so when something gets a little wordy, as long as this is moving through every pitch, the tone's going to keep, it's going to keep alive. Does that make sense? Okay. The other thing I want to think about is your ah vowel on the very first, have you been told this before?
Just what are you going to say? What do you think?
I just think you need a little more room.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think that we, as singers, tend to close our mouths a lot because we hear it better in there. And you have to trust that usually the telltale sign that it's right, I hate to say this, but from our point of view, is when it sounds distant. It's just like coloratura, when it sounds sloppy to us, it's usually clear out there. The minute you try it in here, it's not going to work. And so, listen, I've been here. I think I've been through every possible vocal thing there is to
Some more space. Just let it open
I
up a
want
bit.
you to just drop your jaw.
Okay.
So, qua.
Qua.
Yeah, and leave it there. And what this is going to replace supporting with your jaw, because you were supporting with your jaw a bit, right? And so you need something to replace that with. So we're going to try this instead. So first phrase. And I want you to hold up your head with your thumb. So you're going to release this. I don't. Okay. I feel like I'm letting hang. Yeah. And I want you to open as much as you can. Ah. And now I just want you to sing ando. All right. So that's also already to me a better sound. Part of it is, I'm not worrying if the ah is forward, I'm not worrying if the ah is back, I'm not worrying if the ah is an Italian ah or a French ah. What I'm thinking is, and this is a theory that's not scientifically proved, but my theory is that pretty much if everything is sort of thinking of hanging on the roof of your mouth, all your vowel sounds, it actually freakily works. Like you could go from low to high like that, and it'll just stay there. But you don't want to do this too much. Everything has to be lined up. Right, so do quando. Yeah, I know. This is I'm talking about here, but you want to stay on your vowel. You know, we've heard this a million times. Stay on your vowel as long as possible. We'll think instead of putting the P later. Okay. Some people it works to just think from here. Some people it feels like they should have space between their teeth. Some people really feel it, I had to go this way. So everybody's different in what they feel, but the whole point is you're loosening up your jaw and you're getting a little room in there. So, do that with your thumb in your mouth once and just sing ah.
much because I felt like that
No.
it feels such a big impact on
I
me.
know, you're not gonna hear it as well.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. And I felt like there's more sound coming out. Personally, I felt, as long as you're supporting, you have to support it. Okay. You want to think before any extremes in your voice that you're going to support before you go to it. So you need to pull in a millisecond before. So just do pretty good. Now, can you really say an A vowel up there? A little more forward. There you go. So, yeah, you have to use it even down in the middle where we think, well, it doesn't really matter, right? That was, to me, that was, so it's a lot of work down
Yeah,
here, right?
it's this thought.
Yeah, images. I feel like everything's serving like a platter. Don't want everything, every energy, whether you're going piano or descending, whatever you're going, it's still got to go this way in terms of the energy. You never want to backtrack, which you're not doing. The first time when you do you were acting, which is great. I love acting, but don't act at the times where it might mess up your balance and your mechanism. So you watch really great singers. When push comes to shove, they are singing and then they'll cut off, right? They're not going to get in the way of this whole lineup from here to here. I think of this as my whole instrument, right? So you have to trust that everybody in the audience is waiting for that note and they want to hear that great sound. So you can act in between all you want, but when it comes to that, also I think with your acting you can be a little simpler. It's like, Quando vo. Quando. Be a little more direct. Take a few ideas, go with it as opposed to being too general.
Sure.
Just throw that in there.
Question for you.
Yes.
Okay. So as soon as I start singing, get it in.
You have to
Not
a little bit
just
before.
Okay.
So, now soprano, but watch what this does. Don't judge my sound, please. So this goes actually physically in before you have to, right?
Okay.
So, better. Okay, keep going. Okay, hit it off with the double S on the next pitch. Okay, great. This is another great moment. I want you to feel like you're going down as you go up. Everybody ever heard that one? So that's what's the word? I just feel out of that all hanging in there, right? Okay, do that one more time, and I want you to cut off that top note from here.
Okay.
And you don't even need to breathe because you're going to be ready to go again. This calms down all the breathing stuff. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
No.
I use this to change my pitches. Swear to God, it's a weird idea, but it's your gas pedal. See, one pitch to the next. So, what's wrong with that knee? What are you afraid of?
It's not in the right space.
So why do you, Are you afraid to sing a real eval there? I mean, I'm not being critical. I'm just wondering what it sounds like to you, because a lot of times we're worried about being shrill.
I would say that's probably
Okay,
subconsciously.
you gotta let that go, big time, because what you sound like to yourself, you know, it's easy to say that, but I went through this mezzo thing, and I'm a mezzo, and you know, you're not a mezzo, but I was so afraid to sing an eval. It took me forever to sing an E or an oo on an F or a G on the staff, top of the staff. I couldn't do it physically because I just kept, and so I want you to trust that it's not going to be too bright.
So tutta magira?
Yeah. Tutta magira? No, no.
We were.
We're alle poche bellezza.
Alle occulti guarda, così l'effluvio del desiderio, tutta magia,
Okay, good, exactly. So a lot of this for you, you gotta go like through your music and regroup a little bit, because partly you're gonna learn where you're gonna breathe, but you also learn how you're gonna support. Do you need to pull in a lot really quickly for staccati or whatever? Are you gonna pull in slowly? You wanna make sure you have enough air. The other really cool thing, I'm gonna show all you guys and any singers out there, is once you get this figured out, I call it the belly dance technique. You know, it's just recycling air. Maybe some of you do it, but I'm going to demonstrate what happens when I think I'm going to die, like on a long Bach aria or something. But I'm just going to sing a bunch of pitches. So. All right. So towards the end there, I thought I was going to die. And I just released this muscle while I'm singing. So the sound kept going, but I released the muscle to get the rest of the air that's in there. To let my diaphragm do a little bit more work of, not pushing, but getting the air to come out, right? So that's a really cool tip. So if you're in the middle of an aria and I think, oh shoot, I didn't release as much as I need to, you can actually do it while you're singing. That's just a little tip. Tricks of the trade. So that was really good. Two que side. Don't be afraid of your A vowel. What we see on the page of singers, and if you learn like I do, once I've learned it, I can almost visualize it on the page, and I see something doing this, you know, like those all those charts today. Immediately you're thinking, oh, here it comes, you know, and you got to really fight that, right? But you don't want to do this either. It's just this balanced out larynx thing. Okay, now active is snoring. If you do those from here, that'll help. And also Fuji. Fuji. Yes, then you put your oo in your E place, it's great. Fuji. Fuji. Right. You have this great E, keep it. Keep everything else kind of in that place. It doesn't mean like it's in here, it just means that it's a little more forward. Okay. Okay? Beautiful. Thank you.
Our next singer is baritone Allexander Clark. He has a Bachelor of Music from the University of Prince Edward Island and a Master's in Voice Performance from Westminster. He has performed roles in The Sia d'Amore, Johnny Skiki, Midsummer Night's Dream, Zauberflöte, Falstaff, and other operas. He has been a young artist at the Songfest in Malibu, California. Not a bad place to be. And a bass soloist in numerous oratorios. Alexander Clark.
I'm going to sing Se vuol ballare from Le Nozze di Figaro.
Signor padrone, ora incomincio a capire il mistero e a veder schietto tutto il vostro progetto. A Londra è vero, voi ministro, io corriero, e la Susanna ambasciatrice, non sarà, però il dice se vuol ballare, signor Contino, se vuol ballare, signor Contino, il chitarrino le suonerò. Il chitarrino le suonerò, sì, le suonerò, sì, le suonerò. Se vuol venire nella mia scuola la capriola le insegnerò. Se vuol vedere nella mia scuola la capriola le insegnerò, sì, le insegnerò, sì, le insegnerò. Saprò, 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 ma piano, 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 piano. Meglio ogni arcano dissimulando scoprir potrò. L'arte servendo, l'arte doprando, tipo pungendo, dilaziando, tutte le macchine rovescerò, rovescerò. L'arte servendo, l'arte doprando, tipo pungendo, dilaziando, tutte le macchine rovescerò, tutte le macchine rovescerò, tutte le macchine rovescerò, rovescerò, rovescerò. Se vuol ballare, signor Contino, se vuol ballare, signor Contino, il chitarrino le suonerò. Il chitarrino le suonerò, sì, le suonerò, sì, le suonerò.
Speaker? Okay. I can tell because we tend to use our jaws, and when, you know, I say really, really mad, and jaws are a big, 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 big problem for English speakers, right?
Okay.
And you have one. You have a very strong jaw. It's a great looking jaw. But you need to kind of let it go a little bit. I feel like you're acting and pronouncing and everything with your jaw, and you got to get to a point where you feel like you don't even have a bottom jaw. As weird as that is, you have to kind of go to that extreme to come back to the middle.
Okay.
I think that the text can help you with this a little bit, because I'm not hearing a lot of doubles, I'm not hearing a lot of rolled R's. Can you roll your R?
Yeah.
Right, voice it. And you have to keep your tongue forward to roll your R, so it's already there. Everything is forward, and that'll help you. What's hardest thing about this for you?
I guess the F's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there's a whole other piece there, right? There are only a few F's. Okay, well, let's work on the F's first, real quick. And then I want somebody to bring a chair over here, because I want him to sit on the chair. But first, let's do the F's. Now, you're watching the demonstration I gave. For guys, it's just a little further up, not too far, but a little even down where your belt buckle is, right?
Okay.
Yes, I want that to feel. So go sit and say, hey!
Hey!
Right, that's exactly what you need to do. So, little C, put that, really sing it eval.
Okay.
You're going to feel like, oh gosh, my face is going to fall off. But it's because the buzz is going to be there, right? But you have to fight the tendency to want to go, everything wants to shift up, right?
Yeah.
Actually, first do really slowly. Go so, C, slide up really slowly into it.
Okay. From which?
Rossi,
Slower.
Rossi,
That was already better. Now go E. Okay, better. Now cut that off from here as well, so you don't try to Now, le suonerò si.
Le suonerò si.
Better. Even sing it a little longer.
Okay. Le suonerò si.
Better. Si.
Si.
Yes. I think that combined with a more forward vowel, I feel like you kind of want to go say,
Okay.
which is going to just backfire, you know.
Hmm.
There are lots of times I want to modify vowels, but I tend to modify them on the bright side
Okay.
because I feel like you get, for certain people, this is the other thing, everybody's built so differently, and so like half of the first 3 lessons, I'm sitting there figuring, oh, what's going on there? You know, like I have a thing hanging down the roof of my mouth, and I've got a tongue that goes like this, and I've been singing 35 years, and it still works. So it's like, you know, because we can't see it all. So try that one more time, and I want you to think that this is forward, but your connection is here. So it's this weird thing. You don't want to lift with your larynx, but you do want to keep this kind of C feeling, right?
Okay. Le suonerò si.
There you
Le
go.
suo-
Well, that was easy.
Yeah.
Did you like that? It was pretty good, right? Okay, so that should solve that problem. Now I need a chair. Just need a chair, and I want you to, I find that you're holding a lot of tension up here. I mean, you're lanky guy, right?
Yeah.
I want you to put your elbows on your knees. Yeah. And I just want you to relax. I want you to let your head kind of float around. I don't want it to float too much down.
Okay.
But I want you to kind of look at a spot over here, maybe. Look at that spot.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, a little closer, maybe here. And I just want you to start singing. So don't think right now about what it's about. We'll fix that.
The same phrase?
Oh, no, I want to go to the beginning. All right, sorry.
Okay. Se vuol ballare, signor continuo. Se vuol ballare, signor continuo.
Okay, very good. So it's already better because you're getting out of your own way a little bit, right? Yes, that's the way you have to sing it to the image of the count. Se vuol ballare. You know, don't show us your cards yet. There's a long way to go in this aria. That's a dramatic thing. Do it one more time. Se vuol ballare, signor continuo. Make sure you support the next
Oh,
sound.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
From down low. Sometimes you can feel it well when you're doing this because you can kind of.
Right, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. Se vuol ballare, signor continuo. Se vuol ballare, signor continuo. Il chitarrino le suonerò.
Good. Il guitar. Yeah. Is there a double key or not?
No.
No double key. Il guitar. It would be so much easier with the double key.
Yeah.
Il chitarri. Use your support to go up right before you go up. You got to get this kind of think ahead a little bit
Okay, yeah.
and anticipate with your support.
Il chitarrino le suonerò. Il chitarrino le suonerò, sì. Le suonerò, sì. Le suonerò.
Exactly, and this is like high note syndrome for all of us singers. Le suonerò, sì. Make sure you come in with energy on the next thing. You know, it's like Barbara Seville doing it. Right? So you got it, but you always have to keep going with it, right? So that the C was great. Don't lose us afterwards.
Okay.
Don't be apologetic. Right. Okay. Keep it going.
Se vuol venire nella mia scuola la capriola le insegnerò. Se vuol venire nella mia scuola.
Okay. Good. So that's softer or whatever. It's a different thought. Don't think dynamically. Just think a different color or a different emotion.
Okay, yeah.
The first one was great. Se vuol venire. Use that double L.
Okay.
Okay.
Se vuol venire nella mia scuola la capriola le
Okay,
insegnerò.
good. Do the ola ones because I feel like the la afterwards loses something. Think
Oh,
that the
okay.
la is going this this way. It's like skipping stones. La capriola, right?
Okay, yeah.
You're supposed to backtrack.
La capriola, le insegnerò sì, le insegnerò sì, le insegnerò. Saprò.
Okay, I mean, this is a booger, isn't it? Da Ponte and Mozart. Sapro. You have to, even though the accent's on the pro, you still have to sing that sa, because otherwise it sounds like sapro, sapro, right? So don't be afraid to sing the sa. This is another thing, like with opera singers, we sing in all these foreign languages, the choral singers. It's an added thing we have to deal with, right? And so that the ah really has to be an ah. You got to keep it in there, but trust that it's not going to throw it out of line for you. It won't.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do that.
Saprò. Saprò.
Okay, can you roll your R? Stop to roll.
Okay.
Saprò.
There you go.
Saprò. 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 Ma piano. Piano, 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 piano.
Okay, great. Now this is the thing with this thing. You're going to sing piano. You're going to make a lot more room.
Okay.
Piano, 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 piano. All right?
Okay.
So try that one. You probably won't hear it as well, but ma piano.
Ma piano. Piano, 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 piano.
Ready?
Meglio ogni
That's
arcano.
two. Dum, bum, bum, bum. Meglio. Right?
Okay.
Keep this word going.
Meglio ogni arcano dissimulano scoprir potrò.
Excellent. Okay, so that you got that? All those ah vowels. I mean, we're thinking, oh, it's a longer note value, but you also have to keep this moving. This is where it gets a little bit like this, right?
Okay, yeah.
Now, stand up. Now, how can you keep that and still feel the energy? This is always the challenge. I mean, it drives one pretty nuts because we sing because we're emotional beings and we have something to say and hopefully we're good actors. And you have to do all that, but you still have to not get in the way of your mechanism. And it's so hard. But you got to get that technique lined up to the point that you can probably do anything and it's going to stay put, you know? So it's like, say your favorite vowel is E, E, you should be able to sing all your vowels. E, ow, E, ow, E, ow. It's all staying right there, right? I feel like it's just this constant path. So I think with you, it was a lot of, I felt like I was reading the music from your face. You know, like I could see when it goes like this, when it goes like this, and this, and this, right? So now try to think that it's more horizontal.
Okay.
Right.
Where are we starting?
Beginning.
Se vuol ballare, signor continuo, se vuol ballare, signor continuo, il chitarrino le suonerò.
And I want you to listen up the shoulders, because what you were doing when you were down here is you didn't have to hold up your shoulders.
Yeah.
So you got to be really aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah, we stand up straight, but you don't want to
Right.
overextend, right? So keep in touch with what your neck and what your shoulders are doing. You never want to lock in, and that's hard,
Yeah.
especially when you're trying to be say vuol, ballare. But right, I'm feeling very loose in here. Actually, I'm putting it more in my legs.
Okay.
But that was already so much better. Start again at the beginning.
Se vuol ballare, signor continuo, se vuol ballare, signor continuo, il chitarrino le suonerò, il chitarrino le suonerò, sì, le suonerò.
For the E, no, change pitches from here.
Okay, yeah.
Il chitarrino le suone.
Try it again. Don't lift up here. Just keep it all.
Il chitarrino le suone.
But just the high one.
Le suonerò, sì, le suonerò.
Yeah, le suonerò.
Oh, I see giving up after. Yeah, I see every over there.
The other thing is, when you first were doing it, I felt like you were being so correct with the open and closed vowels. Now, any open vowel, any open A vowel, in any language, you have to learn to say them more forward, because or sing them more forward, because when we say them, it's like rad. Well, that's rad after it, right? So, it's not rave, but it's rad. So it's in this part of your mouth again, it's all this hanging space as opposed to back. And it's tricky when you know a language really well, because you want to place it too far back, and I think that backfires a little bit,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Mhm.
Keep going. Se vuol venire, how are we doing? Okay?
Se vuol venire nella mia scuola,
Just se vuol venire. Feel low. I mean, I did pants rolls, right? So you got to feel a little bit lower part of, what do you call it, center of gravity. Okay? Slower.
se vuol venire nella mia scuola, la capriola le insegnerò. Se vuol venire nel...
Okay, I want you to go, se vuol venire. So
Like,
just do the
make an
phrase
action.
before the se vuol venire, and I want you to use that.
La capriola le insegnerò. Se vuol venire nella mia scuola, la capriola le insegnerò, sì, le insegnerò, sì, le insegnerò.
I love when something works. Okay. So, what did you figure out? It's not a test, but I want to know in your words what it does for you.
I guess never leaving this spot and kind of preceding the phrase a bit with this. In keeping the groundedness, I mean, it's so hard standing still, you know, walking around is a lot easier, right? I find it really hard.
Right.
When you're kind of in an awkward situation to try
Right.
and keep that grounded.
I know that's the hardest thing about auditions and things.
Yeah, for sure.
But you still have to get that feeling. I often say, kind of walk around with it once and then stop and just stay there and sing it and be a little more loose in your body. Because
Yeah.
you're just a little bit tight in your
For
body,
sure.
you know? And I know a lot of that is, I'm a singer, you know? And you don't need to pose or anything for that, right?
Yeah.
Just go on just a little bit for the sapro and more ah.
Saprò, 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 ma piano, 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 piano.
Exactly. So even though it's piano, anything, what I'm trying to get you to do is always keep the energy out.
Okay.
Not backing up, ever. It's like you gotta have this baseline of energy, and you're never gonna go below it, even
Okay,
for
yeah.
piano singing, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that was really good. Do the ma piano.
Ma piano, 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 piano.
Okay, now I have a reason to say piano, 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 piano. I thought of the greatest word, piano.
Ma piano, 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 piano. Meglio ogni arcano dissimulando scoprir potrò.
Exactly. There, you caught yourself, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was really good. So long note values, you still gotta keep it moving.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, keep going now.
L'arte servendo, l'arte d'operando, di qua pungendo, di là scherzando, tutte le macchine rovescerò, rovescerò.
Okay. Are you obsessing about your teeth? You're not? You're not thinking, oh, I don't want to aspirate it too much?
I don't know.
It's a, this is like a pet peeve of mine in Italian diction, because I've never heard an Italian I've never heard them sing it like a duh. And so many, we're taught to sing it like almost a da, da, da.
Oh, okay, yeah, probably.
So I want you to get it a little, don't worry about that. L'arte schermendo, l'arte, but I don't even know all the words, I should, but I don't. Right, so I want you to get this a little more forward in your mouth,
Okay, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But you still gotta keep the tone.
Yeah.
That's the challenge.
Okay.
L'arte servendo, l'arte doprando, ti compungendo.
So the l'arte is a longer note,
Okay.
pull in.
L'arte servendo, l'arte doprando, ti compungendo, di là scherzando, tutte le macchine rovescerò, rovescerò. L'arte servendo, l'arte doprando, ti compungendo,
Okay,
ti...
so now, you've said those words a million times. Now I'll take more like a l'arte da da.
Okay. L'arte servendo, l'arte doprando, ti...
Do it all in just once. That's the way it has to sound.
Okay.
Because we know what you're going to say. L'arte schermendo. It's a lot to get out, but try to stay on your vowels as much as you can. And then, like I was saying, we've actually put the consonant on the next pitch. You might have to take it really slowly once to figure out where you're grabbing
Okay, yeah.
something, right? Do it once. Go l'arte schermendo.
L'arte schermendo.
Okay, get your R, roll bar even more forward,
Okay.
and keep it going into that next note.
L'arte schermendo.
L'arte scher.
L'arte schermendo.
There you go. So then you have to speed it up like that.
Yeah.
So often I'll take it, even when I'm working on my own stuff, new stuff, it'll get too choppy, and I have to think, what am I doing? Take it slower so you can see it. Another good hint is if you're running out of breath, try singing something on one vowel, then try singing it on the vowels that are in the phrase. And if you're okay, just fine and dandy, then you know you're losing air on your consonants, right? So you have to figure out a way. 3 minutes.
L'arte servendo, l'arte doprando, ti compungendo, di là scherzando, tutte le macchine rovescerò, tutte le macchine rovescerò, tutte le macchine rovescerò, rovescerò, rovescerò.
Pretty good. I would like a little more but that was a lot better. See, when I did this, you just
Yeah.
stopped hiking up with it, right?
Yeah.
Good. That's a big issue for you.
Yeah.
And I think that everything just settles down when you don't do that, right?
Mhm.
Have at least resistance.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Tutte le macchine rovescerò, tutte le macchine rovescerò, tutte le macchine rovescerò, rovescerò, rovescerò.
Have us wait. We know you're not done. You haven't resolved the chord.
Se vuol ballare, signor Contino.
Pretty good. Now, also I forgot to say, ballare. Use this to articulate that as opposed to trying too hard up here.
Okay.
Se vuol ballare, signor Contino. Se vuol ballare, signor Contino. Il chitarrino le suona.
All on one level.
Yeah.
Choose a level and keep it.
Il chitarrino le suonerò.
Great. I want you to do it once and accent the lower notes. Il chitarrino le. Almost give too much emphasis on the vowel once.
Il chitarrino.
There's another one, yeah.
Il chitarrino le suonerò.
Exactly, because you don't want to have to keep finding your place every time. So you got to
Yeah.
keep that energy going, right? One more time.
Il chitarrino le suonerò. Il chitarrino le suonerò, sì, le suonerò, sì, le suonerò.
Okay, that was a perfectly acceptable C, and you went. Don't tell us when you don't like it. Okay? That just ruined it. Okay, very good, much
Great.
better.
Thanks a lot.
great, thank you.
I agree, you are great. I agree, you are great.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Danielle Callahan from Chandler, Arizona, graduated from Westminster. She has performed Dorabella in Così fan tutti. She's performed at the Spoleto Festival. She is currently studying with our friend Sharon Sweet, one of our former honored Masterclass teachers. And she is a mezzo-soprano, brave enough to come sing for us. Danielle Callahan.
Hi, today I'll be singing O mio Fernando from Donizetti's La Favorita.
Il mio dolore
isn't a criticism, but I can't possibly work on the whole thing. Can we do the cavalette part first? Dun, da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. What's your favorite vowel?
Probably O.
Really?
Maybe E.
There's no right answer.
Sometimes E doesn't work.
What about like an A, like egg? Like if you're going to say, oh, Canadian egg. Egg. Okay.
The brighter the better.
Yes, the brighter the better. You must have heard that before.
Oh, yes.
Okay, because you're going for a spot that you really like in your upper middle and right above the staff. And I want to brighten that up a little bit because I feel like you go for it and like you're used to that. It seems to be very comfortable for you in terms of your comfort level, and I want you to go out of that comfort level, which is going to make you look crazy, okay? So, can we just go, and I want you to put your thumb behind your front teeth. And just don't analyze the sound so much. You got to get some body going under here. If you're going to sing anything like this takes so much strength down here, right? I don't think people know in general how much body strength it takes to sing. You know, and I'll be on a plane, you say you're an opera singer, and they'll say Phantom of the Opera, and no. It's not. But you also say, well, we don't use a mic, and they're stunned. They're stunned. It's like, how come people don't know this? Because to me, it would make it so fascinating to go to the opera and realize they don't use a mic. Wow. So I think you need tons more body strength. And like I've said to a couple of my students, the amount of energy is so strong. Like I sang a lot with Domingo, for instance. There's so much energy that it's almost like he's trying to keep a lid on it so it doesn't all go bleh, right? And so you're standing next to him, and it's almost like there's this, like a creature ready to jump out of his body or something. And he's trying so hard to keep this from going up in here, right? It's just incredible. So that he just summons this body energy, and I don't think we can necessarily see it on the high def because their costumes and everybody's making it look so easy. It's like ice skating, But it takes so much body strength, and that's what I feel like you don't have yet. And you need to work on that, right? So you have to think about a lot of this support thing. Because the more grounded you are here, the more this will free up, right? But back to the A vowel. So I just want you to go, just keeping the same vowel the whole time. Okay, keep it there when you go down, because you want to go back. You want to go back to how about a real E? But if you keep them closer together, this is a choice you make on a certain part. If things are coming really fast, you want to keep a common vowel as much as you can, vowel space, and get out of your, just let that sound flow. Because I felt this top had so much more ring to it. It felt like you were being a little less blossomy this way, and a little more direct. I mean, that's me. I don't know if you could feel that. Okay, now, what are the words on that? Okay, so sing the first line once. Scritto in cielo il mio dolore. Okay, good. Can I hold your jaw? Yeah. Sing a real A vowel up there. Don't even think of that L, because that L is going to color your vowel too much, placement-wise, right? Okay. So, scritto. Scritto in cielo il mio dolore, sovvenite una festa. Okay, that's where you have to use that. Sovvenite una festa, sparsa la razzia di fior, la razzia di fior. All those little notes you have to really sing. Take time to sing them. I feel like you're kind of going for the longer notes, and in between it gets caught up in the diction a little bit. But slow it down. Slow that phrase down less. but you still got to sing it with energy,
Okay.
right?
Sparsa l'ora sia di fior, già la toma mesa presta, ricoperta in
Right. So there's an R coming up, R's and L's, so this is what's going on with you. So, ricoperta. So you don't go ricoper and color the vowel with the R because it just backfires. This is a real case of English speaking gets in the way, right? Stay on your vowel, put the consonant later. Ricoper.
ricoperta in negro vele, sia la trista fidanzata.
Take that apart. Say la fidanzata.
Sia la trista fidanzata.
Use that on all the way through.
Okay.
So you're going to aim for top. Trista fidanzata, right?
Sia la trista fidanzata, irrequieta, disperata, non avrà perdono in
Okay,
cielo.
so your O vowel, I think you can get a little bit more of this. You got this great cheekbone thing going and less jaw.
Okay.
And this is one, believe me, this is one that took me a long time to sing an ooh or O. Excuse me, that way, because sometimes it's easier to get your jaw on it. So we just had a bunch of O vowels. Kyrie, that way. Through your mouth over here. Go.
Irrequieta,
Even more. I think that. I'll sing it once.
irrequieta.
You need a little more hanging space because there's not enough room for the sound to get across your tongue and your palate.
Irrequieta, disperata, non avrà morata,
I know. That's weird. Just do rata.
non
Okay, sing noon.
non
That was better. Now put your ah in a similar place because it's going to go by. So on these long notes, use that energy into the double P. Don't give up on any of these pitches in terms of energy. You're singing them, but I need energy.
Okay.
Maledetta, disperata, non avrà perdono in cielo, non avrà. Maledetta, disperata, non avrà perdono in cielo, non avrà perdono in cielo, non avrà perdono in cielo.
Sorry, I had to take your head out. You were locked. Do that. Da, 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 da.
Non avrà perdono in cielo, non avrà perdono in cielo, non avrà perdono in cielo.
Okay. There's another thing you do. You're setting big time.
Okay.
Is it because it's a more dramatic aria, do you think?
It might just be where I hold my emotions, yeah.
Ah, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, because you never want to lock here. All our Alexander technique friends must be really loving this. I love that Alexander technique, but it's so easy to lock right here when we get dramatic. You have this hair that's kind of hiding it. Because I wasn't seeing it here, but it was obviously here when I touched you, right? Now try to do that without me shaking your head. Just double check it. Make sure it's not locked.
Okay.
Non avrà perdono in cielo, non avrà perdono in cielo, non avrà perdono in cielo. La trista fidanzata non avrà perdono in cielo, non avrà perdono in cielo, non avrà perdono in cielo.
you're thinking, wow, this sounds like, hold on, everybody. But if you do that, it totally backfires. So what you want to have come out is the right intention, but you're going about it the wrong way. So just that. I think you just need to do this for a little while.
Maledetto disperata.
Make sure you're such a tricker. Move your head this way. There. Do that, maledetta.
Maledetto disperata.
Right. Okay. So this is like camera lens time. And we just do this. Somebody was talking about that yesterday. There's the slightest adjustment changes the whole thing. That was great. To me, that sounded so much freer. And you kind of, again, I think you were locking here, and you don't want to ever, for the slightest bit, go up, right? One more time.
Maledetto disperata.
Good.
Non avrà perdono in cielo.
Sing Perdana once and shake it out. Okay, now what does that sound like to you up there when you just did that?
Extremely bright, like sounds very shrill to me.
Did it sound shrill to you guys? I mean, it's not a loaded question. I think it had the turnover that it needed, if you call it such. The other one has a dullness, I don't mean this in a bad way. It just loses its ping suddenly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that you got to trust that just placing things a hair more forward. And I'm not talking about this, believe me, I'm not going anything. You just angle things just a little differently. Because I really feel when everything is lined up, it's kind of spooky how everything works well. It's just that then we're thrown with emotions and we have language and we have all these other things. So, good. I want to work a little bit, we're doing okay? I want to work a little bit on the rest. That, to me, is a dramatic thing. And you still, because it's accompanied repetitive and it's dramatic, you need to really sing every note.
Dunque vero, o ciel, adesso Fernando.
Oh, ciao. Adesso Fernando. Keep the intensity going. Oh, ciao. Just stop your support and then come back in. You don't need to drop. You don't need to reset anything. Oh, ciao. Adesso Fernando. Okay.
Dunque vero, o ciel, adesso Fernando. Lo sposo
Please, lo sposo. Just on lo sposo. Good. And can you open that mouth before you attack? So you got to think ahead. So on the little interlude,
Okay.
that's ready. So you don't want to open on the way. Okay. Lo sposo di Leonora. Open all the way. Yeah, I want you to really try that.
Okay. Okay.
One more time. La sposa di Leonora. So it's not accent at all, but it needs to be out here.
tutto me dice e dubbia l'alma ancora.
Okay. Tutta ma disse. Disse, is that it? I'm dice. I don't do this wrong. Do that tutta ma disse one more time. Really milk every note.
Tutto me dice,
Okay.
dice.
Keep it going this way because you don't want to back off. It's the whole thing of Italian.
Yeah.
You don't accent the unaccent, but you still got to give the one before it maybe a little more energy, right?
Tutto me dice
There you go.
e dubbia l'alma ancora.
this is all getting ahead of your body, and you got to have this come first a little bit, right? One more time on that phrase. Da, 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 da.
Allina disagioia. Oddio, sposarlo. Oh, mia vergogna estrema.
Great opera line.
Oh, mia vergogna estrema.
You have to really milk that baby. I do not want you putting one consonant on until it's the next pitch. I want you to open your mouth before you attack.
Oh, mia vergogna estrema.
Estrema, is it?
Yeah.
Estrema. Don't be afraid. Get that really forward.
Oh, mia vergogna estrema.
Try it once with
Yeah.
hand, roof on mouth. Just let everything hang, and just sing an ah vowel. Let your jaw drop open, please. Ah. Okay, so that's red. It's going where it naturally wants to go. Do it now with the words with your thumb in your mouth, sort of.
Oh, mia vergogna estrema.
Estrema. So there's an M in that word. Don't let it color the A. Actually, and also you're going through your registers. So it's kind of like a gear shift. You ever do a manual? Anybody drive a stick? Well, okay. When you drive a stick, you don't want to stall out, right?
Yeah.
So you got to kind of balance this thing and gas and the whole thing, right? You got to wait for your support before you get to that pitch that's going into your middle voice. So I want you to really feel that you're going to wait for this to go before you. You have total control here. There's nothing under you, too. All right? One more time. I want you to really take time going into the estrema. Better. Okay? Same thing. Any register change. Wait for your body. That's like why Voi che sapete is one of the hardest arias for mezzo. Anybody who's sung it? Oh my God. It just keeps going up in your upper middle, and you got to balance out that upper middle and support to get through it, and you can't ever reach or put it out of line, and it's so hard if you ever worked on that. It's hard to come back to the reprise and be in tune, and that's why, because your larynx wants to keep helping. Right? And you got to train it to stay down, but you don't want to ever shove it. That's always the thing. Okay, so that was really good. What's right after that? Yeah, okay, now, we're in our middle voice. A lot of energy, longer notes, longer vowels.
In do di aprode, recaglia di sonor.
Right? Keep your support going through that pitch.
Recaglia di sonor. No!
Put your M down here. Okay. Exactly. Now your ear wants to go back a little bit. Think of it as more
Fuggir.
better. So I feel like you backtrack a little bit. Right? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to mess up anything you're doing, but you probably are airing a little bit too much that way, and you need to balance it out a little bit, okay? I got the time signal over here, so we have to stop. Thank you so much. questions? These things are so hard because there's so much I'd like to say, and I have to pick on certain, or choose certain things that I think I can help right away. You know, and everybody is a work in progress. I'm still a work in progress, man. You know, my hormones want to change, and I gain a few pounds, I lose a few pounds, or I don't practice as much as I should, and then I have to come back and sing, and I'm not in condition. You know, every time I learn something new, I go through this, always, because I see what's on the page, and I'll start lifting for something. I call it lifting when your larynx gets up, and then you got to go way, because you'll know, because you can't come back down. You'll know when your larynx gets stuck, because it doesn't want to respond to come right back down, right? So, I wasn't just looking at you, but so usually that means somewhere backing up, you were lifting, right? It's usually when there's an interval that we didn't support, or we're trying to do it too mechanically, right? Questions? Mm-hmm.
Would you speak about staccato support?
Mm-hmm. It's the same. It's just, I think of it as when there are repeated notes that are the same pitch, I think it's really easy for us to get very vertical, and you need to think more horizontal where they're going, right? So, right, it's supposed to, so you kind of have to phrase them a little more. Groups of coloratura, for instance, I try to take groups, and if I accent the first note of each group, maybe 6 pitches or whatever it is, as opposed to, right? To me, it sounds totally sloppy and muffy, and I've learned to deal with that, you know. But because I think almost we try too hard, and you have to trust that your brain is doing a lot of this work. I call it like, it's like the Music Man think system, you know. But it's true when it comes to actually finding pitches. Once you've got them learned, they're there. You got to trust your brain cells to. And the same thing with pitch problems and sharp or flat. It's not your ear. It's a technical thing. And 9 times out of 10, it's your larynx flipping up, or your tongue is getting in the way, or you're just not supporting. And I think that this I don't know, the support saved my life, I tell you. Because whenever I had to sing things like The Composer in Ariadne, which is primal scream therapy, let me tell you, you just love it and you're so into it, but you cannot do that. And so you have to find another way to do it, or else you're gone in about the first 2 pages. Yeah. So much of it is experiential learning too. Like I learned a certain amount in the studio and worked all my roles with Norma, but then I had to take it out, and you know, that's what rehearsals are for. You kind of choose one thing to focus on. I'm going to focus on my legato and my line, and, you know, whatever it is, until you really get it. Oh, but that really didn't answer your question. Oh, okay. Everything from here. Well, I think it's hard because we try to do staccato too much from here, like, and it's just right on here. Yeah?
You started with what is your best follow?
Mm-hmm.
I love starting from that point myself. What is it? Tell us what you're listening for.
Oh, well, I'm trying to, because I can't see in there everything, I'm trying, usually it's a telltale sign. If somebody's vowel is pretty easy and free, a certain vowel, they're doing something right? I like to build on what they're doing right. And so I'll see, okay, now what are you doing there? Oh, okay. Well, let's try to get your, like, I've had students that go way too far for their ah. So I'll start them on, they'll be on an E, and I'll say, you put that ah in an E place, and they look at you cross-eyed. But I said, we're talking, again, like camera lens stuff. We're not talking, you don't go, E-ah. It's E-ah. And then once it stays there, you can, ah, and it'll stay with the resonance. I'm going for resonance. So it's up here. I mean, the only thing, this is really horrible with all the doctors, the only thing I think of down here is that my larynx will stay down and that my tongue is not grabbing under here. That's another thing. Norma would come over and my tongue would just be bulging. And she'd come at me like this. I'd say, do not touch my jaw one more time. I mean, it was like literally, we would just, because I had to give up so many bad habits, I got by with what it sounds like to be a singer, which is totally sounds more complicated than it actually is. It's whoa, as we've all seen with the young Wunderkinds with so much tension. You know, they're wonderful performers, but Charlotte Church and Jackie Evancho, Rubancho, there's so much tension because she's pretending to make an operatic sound. Oh, I wanted to say one other thing real quick. In these sessions, I think you're born with an operatic voice. And I bet anybody in here who's an opera singer, when they were a senior in high school, their voice didn't blend. It was suddenly really loud and wild. And that's usually the thing. And that, you know, if the teacher doesn't understand, they're like, keep it down, you know. And you don't know what to do with it. And for me, it was humiliation because there was, even though I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, I didn't know the opera was there at that point. I wasn't aware of it. And the kids would make terrible fun of me. And I knew something was different. I knew something was, I don't know, I would go in and I'd start singing to Eileen Farrell, of all things, and think, wow, I can do that. But then, you know, you go out and think, I can't do that. But then I was an usher at Santa Fe Opera, and then I realized, oh, this is what I am. So I really think once you go through puberty, it becomes very evident if you got an operatic instrument or not. And then you choose whether you're going to train it or not. But I do think not everybody's an opera singer. Maybe everybody's a singer, but they're not an opera singer. Oh, already. Okay, I could talk forever. So.
One more round of thanks for Ashley, Alexander, and Danielle. It is hard to stand up here in front of an audience. And to Maestro Richard Ralph. Susanne for a superb masterclass, another wonderful example of inspiring in different words, in different ways, finding just what the singer needs to hear to produce what the singer needs to change, to let it out and get out of his or her own way. And the mark of a master teacher is having a million different ways to do that. And that was a spectacular example. Thank you. If you're not already planning to come to the gala tomorrow to hear more about and more from Susanne, there's still time to do
It's
so.
a big story.
Have a nice evening. Sleep well. We'll see you all bright and
I
early.
want to tell one thing. Don't be discouraged by anything I said. It's all, you're all talented. And you all have beautiful instruments. And you just got to keep working on it. I mean, truly. Don't go out of here thinking, oh, God, I was terrible.
Oh, yes, there is a reception to meet with Susanne, if she can stand up. And
Do you need a hand with anything?
No, this is
May I thank you from the bottom of my little black heart jeans giving to you. Voice teacher, now speech pathologist, also working with injuries. You said all the things I say from this compliment. Of course, what I wanted to wail to you as soon as you said it was, it was my end of what you did. Sure. But boy, every word. Just thank you. That was wonderful. Just wonderful.
Thank you.
And I'm an Alexander teacher, so I was really excited that you were.
Yeah, it's great.
We did a picture with you and Bob with this, and then with the kids.